the quiet coastal town of Harborview, where the sea breeze carried the scent of salt and pine, Jack Harper walked the weathered boardwalk with his dog, Max, a sleek Belgian Malinois whose amber eyes scanned the horizon with unwavering focus. The town's residents, scattered along the promenade and clustered around the quaint shops, glanced sideways at Jack with thinly veiled disdain. Whispers followed him like shadows, and laughter, often cruel and biting, punctuated their murmurs. Jack, a retired Navy SEAL, had returned to this sleepy town seeking refuge, but instead found himself an outsider, a figure of ridicule rather than respect. Jack's broad shoulders and deliberate stride betrayed a lifetime of discipline and combat readiness. But here in Harborview, those qualities were met with skepticism. The locals saw only a man who spoke too much of battles fought and medals earned. Stories they dismissed as tall tales from a man trying to relive glory days that no one here had witnessed. Max trotted obediently at Jack's side, a living testament to his handler's skill. Yet even the dog's presence failed to soften the town's cold reception. Before we continue, make sure to like and subscribe to never miss a new video. And tell me, where are you watching this video from? I love seeing all different people come together for these stories. The boardwalk was lined with weather-beaten benches and pastel-painted shops selling homemade crafts and fresh seafood. Seagulls wheeled overhead, their cries mingling with the distant roar of the ocean. But beneath this picturesque veneer, a subtle tension simmered, a collective unease that seemed to deepen whenever Jack passed through. Emily Carter, the mayor's daughter, was a young woman who embodied the town's spirit, curious, adventurous, and deeply connected to Harborview's rugged landscape. Her sudden disappearance sent ripples of alarm through the community, shattering the fragile calm. It was a mystery that no one wanted to face, yet none could ignore. Jack had heard the news at the diner that morning, the words cutting through the usual morning chatter. "Emily's gone missing," someone had said, voice low and urgent, eyes flicking toward him as if expecting him to offer some kind of solution. Instead, Jack simply nodded, his mind already racing through possibilities and scenarios only someone with his training could conjure. The town's narrow streets and rocky cliffs formed a maze that would challenge any rescue effort. Emily had set out alone for a hike along the coastal cliffs, a place where the land met the wild, unforgiving ocean. Her disappearance was not just a personal tragedy, but a test of the town's resilience and unity. Jack's presence had always been a source of discomfort for many Harborview residents. To them, he was a relic of a violent past they preferred to forget, a man who carried the weight of battles they could neither understand nor appreciate. Yet, beneath the surface of their mockery lay a grudging awareness that Jack was different, capable, resourceful, and unyielding. As Jack moved through the town, the whispers grew louder. "There goes the soldier who thinks he's a hero. Bet he couldn't even find his own way home, let alone a missing girl." The venom in their words stung, but Jack's expression remained stoic, a mask forged in years of hardship and loss. Max padded silently beside him, attuned to his handler's every mood. The dog's keen senses were unmatched, a living extension of Jack's own skills. Together, they had faced dangers that would unnerve even the bravest soul. Yet here, their talents were met with skepticism and scorn. The mayor, a stout man with a face weathered by years of coastal winds, avoided Jack's gaze during their brief encounters. His daughter's disappearance was a wound too raw for public display. Yet the unspoken tension between them was palpable. Harborview needed a rescue effort, but it was unclear whether they would accept help from the man they so easily marginalized. At the town square, a small gathering had formed, a mix of worried parents, local fishermen, and a few teenagers who whispered rumors and speculations. Jack approached cautiously, his presence drawing both curious glances and sharp glares. "I want to help," Jack said quietly, his voice steady but carrying an edge of urgency. "Max and I have experience in search and rescue. We can cover ground quickly and track her scent." A murmur ran through the crowd, skepticism blooming like a thorny hedge. The mayor stepped forward, his eyes narrowing. "We appreciate the offer, Jack, but this is our town. We have our own search parties." His tone was polite but firm, a clear dismissal. Jack's jaw tightened, but he held his tongue. He knew better than to confront the town's pride head-on, especially now. Instead, he watched as the official search parties prepared, their efforts earnest but uncoordinated, hampered by the difficult terrain and the ever-encroaching fog rolling in from the sea. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows over Harborview's rocky cliffs, Jack and Max retreated to the edge of the boardwalk. The dog's nose twitched, picking up scents imperceptible to human senses. Jack closed his eyes, breathing in the salty air, focusing on the faintest traces of Emily's presence. He had been a soldier, a protector, a man who thrived in chaos and danger. Now, in this small town that rejected him, he faced a different kind of battle, the fight to prove his worth, to overcome the invisible barriers of prejudice and mistrust. The disappearance of Emily Carter was more than an emergency. It was a test of character for everyone in Harborview. And as Jack looked out over the restless sea, he vowed silently that he would not let this town down, not while he still had breath in his lungs and Max by his side. The wind picked up, carrying with it the distant call of a foghorn and the faint, haunting echo of a town on the brink of crisis. Jack tightened his grip on Max's leash, readying himself for the long night ahead, unaware that the path to redemption would be as treacherous as the cliffs where Emily had vanished. Harborview was a town that seemed to exist in a bubble of time, perched precariously between the restless ocean and dense coastal forests. Its winding streets curled like ribbons through clusters of weathered cottages, each painted in hues softened by years of sun and salt. The scent of pine mingled with the briny air, carrying the promise of storms and the whisper of ancient tides. This was a place where everyone knew one another, where the rhythm of life was measured by the ebb and flow of the sea. Jack Harper had come to Harborview seeking solitude after years spent in the relentless crucible of combat. The transition from elite soldier to reclusive retiree had not been easy, but the town's quiet charm offered a fragile balm to a restless soul. Still, Jack found himself an outsider, a man whose silence was often met with suspicion or outright dismissal. The locals saw a man out of place, a figure cast in the shadow of wars they neither understood nor wished to remember. Jack's home was a modest cabin, nestled among towering firs, its windows facing the crashing surf far below. Here, Max, his Belgian Malinois, was more than a companion. He was a partner, a lifeline. Trained to respond to the subtlest commands, Max's presence was a constant reminder of Jack's past life, a past he neither flaunted nor regretted. Together, they formed an unspoken bond, forged through countless trials and shared dangers. The town itself was a patchwork of old and new. Fishing boats bobbed gently in the harbor, their nets drying under the watchful gaze of weathered fishermen, who still clung to traditions passed down through generations. Along the main street, a handful of shops offered handmade crafts and fresh seafood, their owners greeting visitors with cautious smiles. The general store, with its creaking floors and faded signs, was the social hub where news traveled fast and secrets lingered longer. Jack often visited the local diner, a place where the scent of brewed coffee mingled with the salty tang of the sea air. Yet even here, amidst the clatter of dishes and murmur of conversation, he was met with sideways glances and thinly veiled snickers. His tales of military service were met with raised eyebrows or polite nods, quickly replaced by whispers and laughter once he turned away. The town's collective memories seemed determined to erase the existence of a man who had once been a hero. Emily Carter, the mayor's daughter, had grown up in this landscape, her spirit as untamed as the ocean winds. She was known for her curiosity and fierce independence, often seen exploring the rugged cliffs that bordered Harborview. Her disappearance had cast a shadow over the town, turning familiar streets into corridors of worry and suspicion. Jack had observed the town's reaction with a mixture of empathy and frustration. Harborview was a place where appearances mattered deeply, where the past was often buried beneath layers of small-town pride and unspoken grievances. To many, Jack was a reminder of a world they preferred to keep at arm's length, a world of violence and sacrifice that clashed with their peaceful existence. Despite the cold reception, Jack moved through Harborview with quiet determination. He understood the delicate balance between respect and intrusion, often choosing to remain on the periphery rather than confront the town's guarded nature. His interactions were brief, measured, and marked by a somber politeness that rarely invited friendship but demanded acknowledgement. Max, ever alert, mirrored his handler's mood. The dog's sharp eyes missed little, the subtle shifts in the wind, the faintest scents carried on the breeze, the wary glances exchanged among townsfolk. Together, they were a silent force, an unspoken promise of protection in a community that had yet to accept them fully. The mayor, a man whose weather-beaten face bore the weight of responsibility and private sorrow, embodied the town's conflicted spirit. His public demeanor was firm and resolute, but beneath it lay a man grappling with fear and helplessness. The loss of his daughter was a wound that transcended politics and pride, touching the core of Harborview's fragile unity. As Jack walked the narrow streets, he noticed the subtle signs of a community on edge. Doors were left ajar, conversations hushed when he approached, and children glanced nervously from behind curtains. The town's scenic beauty belied the anxiety that roiled beneath, a tension as palpable as the gathering fog that rolled in from the sea each evening. In the local church, a group had gathered for an impromptu prayer meeting, their voices rising in solemn harmony. Jack paused outside, listening to the words that spoke of hope and deliverance, their echoes mingling with the distant crash of waves. It was a reminder that, even in the darkest moments, Harborview clung to faith and tradition as anchors in a turbulent world. Jack's own faith was quieter, forged in the crucible of experience rather than ritual. He found solace in routine, the early morning runs along the shoreline, the careful training sessions with Max, the meticulous maintenance of his gear. These were the rituals that kept the ghosts at bay, that tethered him to the present even as the past gnawed at the edges of his mind. The bond between Jack and Max was a testament to the power of trust and loyalty. Max was more than a trained dog. He was a reflection of Jack's own resilience, a partner who understood the language of silence and instinct. Their relationship was built on countless hours of shared hardship, a connection that transcended words and bridged the gap between man and animal. Despite the town's skepticism, Jack remained committed to Harborview. He saw potential beneath the wary eyes and guarded hearts, a community capable of rallying together in the face of adversity. His own journey was intertwined with the town's fate, each step forward a quiet act of defiance against the isolation that threatened to consume them both. The sun dipped low behind the hills, casting long shadows over Harborview's rugged coastline. The gentle roar of the ocean mingled with the rustling of trees and the soft murmur of the town settling into evening. In this moment, Jack felt the fragile pulse of a place caught between past and future, hope and fear. As night approached, Jack prepared for the days ahead. The search for Emily would require patience, skill, and the slow rebuilding of trust. Harborview was more than a backdrop to his story. It was a living, breathing character, its beauty and complexity mirrored in the people who called it home. With Max by his side, Jack stepped into the gathering darkness, ready to face whatever challenges lay hidden among the cliffs and forests. The town's secrets were many, but so too were its strengths. And in the quiet spaces between waves and wind, a new chapter was beginning, one that would test the limits of courage, endurance, and the enduring bond between man and dog. The morning sun cast a pale glow over Harborview, illuminating the narrow streets and weathered facades with a muted light that seemed to echo the town's cautious mood. Jack Harper moved through the sleepy town with a quiet determination, but the atmosphere around him was thick with resistance. The whispers that had followed him since his arrival now carried a sharper edge. Mockery veiled thinly as concern, skepticism masquerading as civility. At the local cafe, Jack took his usual seat near the window, hoping to blend into the background. But even here, the air buzzed with hushed conversations and pointed glances. The barista, a young woman with a forced smile, handed him his coffee with a nod that barely concealed her reluctance. Nearby patrons exchanged smirks when Jack wasn't looking, their laughter just loud enough to catch his attention without offering a clear target. "Found any missing girls in your line of work, soldier?" a voice sneered from the next table. It was Tom, a fisherman known for his loud mouth and sharper tongue. His friends chuckled, egging him on as if the joke was some twisted form of entertainment. Jack's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. Years of discipline had taught him the value of restraint, especially in a place where tempers flared as easily as the coastal winds. Max, sensing his handler's tension, shifted closer, his ears pricked and muscles taut. The townsfolk had long dismissed Jack as a relic, a man clinging to a past that no longer held meaning for them. His stories of covert missions and battlefield heroics were met with disbelief or outright derision. To them, he was an enigma wrapped in bravado, a stranger who refused to fade quietly into the background. Outside, children played near the docks, their laughter a sharp contrast to the undercurrent of suspicion that surrounded Jack. Some of the older kids threw sidelong glances his way, their expressions a mix of curiosity and wariness. Rumors had spread quickly about the man who talked to his dog as if it were a comrade, about the medals he wore quietly beneath his jacket, about the secrets he carried in his eyes. Jack had tried to bridge the gap, offering help when Emily Carter went missing, volunteering his skills and Max's keen senses. But each attempt was met with polite refusals or outright dismissal. The mayor and his council kept their distance, unwilling to let the man they regarded as an outsider take a role in their crisis. At the town square, Jack witnessed a gathering that encapsulated the town's divided spirit. A group of volunteers prepared to search the cliffs, their faces etched with worry and determination. Yet, as Jack stepped forward, offering his assistance once more, he was met with a chorus of polite but firm refusals. "We appreciate your offer, Jack," said Linda, a local teacher who had taken a lead in organizing the search. "But we have it covered. This is our community, and we know these lands better than anyone." Her words were kind but final, a barrier built on years of mistrust and pride. Jack nodded, suppressing the sting of rejection. He understood the weight of small-town loyalty, the fierce protectiveness that could both bind and blind a community. The day wore on with little progress. Search parties combed the rugged coastline, their efforts hampered by thick fog and treacherous terrain. Jack watched from a distance, frustration mounting as he saw opportunities missed, signs overlooked, paths untraveled. Max paced beside him, restless and alert, sensing the urgency that Jack struggled to express. In the quiet moments between searches, Jack found himself reflecting on his place in Harborview. The town's disdain was not just a reaction to his outsider status. It was a shield against change, a defense against the unknown. His presence challenged the comfortable narratives they clung to, a reminder that even in peace, danger lurked, and heroes could be found in unexpected forms. One afternoon, Jack attempted to engage a group of townspeople near the harbor. "If you let me and Max help, we can cover more ground," he urged, his voice steady but edged with impatience. "I know how to track, how to read the signs you might miss." A man named Carl, a lifelong resident and vocal skeptic, stepped forward, his arms crossed and a sneer playing on his lips. "We don't need a soldier and his dog showing us how to live in our own town," he spat. "We've managed just fine before you came along." The crowd murmured in agreement, the collective scorn palpable. Jack's gaze hardened, but he held his composure, knowing that confrontation would only deepen the divide. Instead, he turned away, the weight of isolation pressing down heavier than ever. That evening, Jack returned to the cabin by the shore, the fading light casting long shadows across the wooden floors. Max settled at his feet, sensing the tension that clung to his handler like a second skin. Jack ran a hand through his hair, the lines of fatigue etched deep across his face. The town's rejection was a bitter pill, but beneath it lay a steely resolve. Jack was no stranger to adversity, and he knew that trust was earned, not given. His mission was clear, not just to find Emily Carter, but to break through the walls Harborview had built around itself and him. As darkness fell, the sound of the ocean filled the cabin, a constant reminder of the world beyond the town's borders. Jack's thoughts turned to the young woman, lost somewhere in the wilds, her fate unknown. Max nudged his hand, a silent vow passing between them. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new obstacles. But Jack Harper was a man forged in fire, and he would not be silenced or sidelined. Harborview might mock him now, but the tides were shifting, and soon the town would see the strength that lay beneath the soldier's quiet exterior. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows and carrying with it the distant call of gulls and the faint echoes of a town on edge. Jack settled into a restless sleep, dreams haunted by cliffs and unseen paths, readying himself for the battles yet to come. The morning fog clung stubbornly to the rugged cliffs that bordered Harborview, softening the jagged edges of the landscape into a ghostly haze. The sea below churned with restless energy, waves crashing against rocks with a thunderous roar that echoed through the narrow coves and hidden inlets. It was along these treacherous cliffs that Emily Carter had vanished, her solitary hike turning into a nightmare that gripped the town in a tightening vice of fear and uncertainty. The news of Emily's disappearance spread like wildfire, igniting a mixture of panic and determination among Harborview's residents. Search parties assembled quickly, their members drawn from fishermen, teachers, and volunteers who knew the terrain intimately, each driven by a shared urgency to find the young woman before the unforgiving coastline claimed her. But as hours passed with no sign of Emily, hope began to waver. Jack Harper stood at the edge of the town, watching the organized chaos unfold. The search parties moved deliberately, but were hindered by the difficult terrain. Steep cliffs, dense underbrush, and treacherous paths that twisted unpredictably along the shore. The fog limited visibility, turning every step into a cautious gamble. Max, ever vigilant, scanned the surroundings with sharp eyes and twitching nose, picking up scents that eluded the human searchers. Jack knew that time was critical. Every moment lost decreased the chances of a successful rescue. He moved closer to the mare, who stood nearby, his face pale and drawn, the weight of his daughter's fate etched deeply into his features. "I can help," Jack said quietly, stepping forward. "Max and I can track her scent. We can cover ground faster and more effectively than the others." The mayor's eyes flickered with a mixture of hope and hesitation. "Jack, I appreciate your offer, but this is our town. We have protocols in place, and the volunteers are doing their best." Jack nodded, sensing the unspoken barriers that pride and fear had erected. "I understand. But if you change your mind, we're here." As the search intensified, the fog thickened, swallowing the cliffs and muffling the sounds of the rescue efforts. Jack and Max observed from a distance, their patience tested by the slow progress and the palpable tension that hung over Harborview like a storm cloud. Hours later, when the sun began to break through the mist, the mayor approached Jack with a reluctant nod. "We could use your help," he admitted, voice heavy with the burden of command and desperation. "The volunteers are exhausted, and the terrain is proving more dangerous than we anticipated." Jack's expression softened, a flicker of gratitude passing between them. "Max and I won't waste any time." They set out immediately, Jack's boots crunching on the gravel path as Max led the way, nose to the ground, ears twitching with every scent carried by the wind. The dog's training was evident in every movement. Precise, purposeful, and unerring. The cliffs rose steeply on one side, their rocky faces slick with moss and sea spray. On the other, dense forests stretched inland, shadows weaving through the trees like silent sentinels. Jack navigated the terrain with practiced ease, his eyes scanning for any signs, a broken branch, a footprint, a discarded piece of clothing. After several hours, Max halted abruptly near the entrance to a narrow cave nestled between boulders. The dog's body tensed, nostrils flaring as he signaled a scent. Jack crouched, examining the area carefully. The ground bore faint traces of disturbed soil and scuffed leaves, evidence that someone had passed through recently. "Good boy, Max," Jack murmured, his voice low and steady. He pulled out a GPS device and marked the location, then radioed the search command with the coordinates. The mayor's voice crackled through the receiver. "We're sending a team your way." Jack waited, watching the shifting fog as it curled around the rocks, the silence broken only by the distant crash of waves. The discovery gave the search new direction, a fragile thread of hope in a tangled web of uncertainty. As the rescue team arrived, Jack led them cautiously into the cave's shadowed mouth. The air was damp and cool, carrying the faint scent of earth and something else. Fear, perhaps, or the lingering trace of Emily's presence. Inside, the cave narrowed, forcing them to move single file. Jack's flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing jagged walls and uneven footing. Then, deep within the cavern, came a faint sound, a soft, muffled cry that sent a jolt of adrenaline through the group. "Emily," Jack called, his voice steady but urgent. The figure that emerged from the shadows was pale and shaken, but alive. Emily's eyes, wide with relief and exhaustion, locked onto Jack's. "Thank God," she whispered. Jack moved quickly, assessing her injuries with a practiced eye. She had a twisted ankle and several scrapes, but was otherwise unharmed. The team prepared her for extraction, careful not to exacerbate her condition. Outside, the fog had begun to lift, revealing the anxious faces of the townspeople gathered near the cliffs. When Emily was carried into the light, a wave of relief swept through the crowd, breaking the tension that had gripped Harborview for so long. The mayor stepped forward, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you, Jack. You and Max saved my daughter." Jack nodded, the weight of the moment settling over him. For the first time since his arrival, the town's walls seemed to crack, allowing a glimpse of acceptance and gratitude. As Emily was tended to by medical personnel, Jack stood beside Max, watching the sunrise paint the sky in hues of gold and pink. The rescue was only the beginning, but in that fragile dawn, Harborview's story had taken a new turn, one shaped by courage, skill, and the quiet strength of a man and his dog who refused to be ignored. The morning after Emily's rescue dawned crisp and clear. The fog lifted to reveal Harborview bathed in soft sunlight. The town, still shaken but buoyed by hope, began to stir with cautious optimism. Jack Harper stood at the edge of the harbor, Max sitting alertly by his side, their breath visible in the cool air as they watched the town wake from a restless night. The mayor approached Jack with a tentative expression, the weight of yesterday's events softening the usual stiffness between them. "Jack," he began, hesitation giving way to resolve, "we'd like you and Max to officially join the search efforts. Your expertise was invaluable yesterday." Jack regarded the mayor steadily, noting the shift in tone, no longer dismissive, but respectful. "I'm ready to help," he replied simply. "Max and I will start tracking first thing." Word spread quickly through Harborview that Jack and Max had been welcomed into the fold. The skeptical whispers that once followed Jack were replaced by a mixture of curiosity and grudging admiration. The community, still grappling with the shock of Emily's disappearance and rescue, found a renewed sense of purpose in uniting behind their unexpected ally. As the search parties reassembled, Jack took a moment to gather his gear, checking the leash and harness on Max with practiced efficiency. The dog's keen senses had already proven pivotal, and Jack knew every advantage mattered. Together, they would venture into the dense forests and rugged cliffs surrounding the town, areas where previous searches had faltered. The terrain was unforgiving. Steep inclines cloaked in thick underbrush, rocky outcrops slick with morning dew, and narrow trails that twisted unpredictably through the wilderness. Jack moved with quiet confidence, Max weaving through the brush with fluid grace, nose close to the ground as he traced faint scents carried by the breeze. The townspeople watched from a distance, their attitudes beginning to shift as they witnessed the pair's efficiency and focus. Linda, the local teacher who had initially declined Jack's help, observed with a growing sense of respect. "He knows what he's doing," she admitted softly to a fellow volunteer. "Max is like an extension of him, no wasted movement, no hesitation." Jack's calm determination was a stark contrast to the earlier chaotic efforts. He communicated with Max through subtle gestures and quiet commands, their partnership a seamless blend of instinct and training. Hours passed as they methodically covered ground, each step a calculated move toward uncovering new clues. Near a thicket bordering a narrow creek, Max suddenly halted, ears perked and body rigid. Jack crouched beside him, scanning the area carefully. The dog's nose twitched as he sniffed the air, then pawed at the damp earth with increasing urgency. Jack's eyes caught sight of a torn scrap of fabric entangled in the branches, a piece of Emily's jacket lost during her ordeal. He radioed the discovery back to the search command, his voice steady but betraying a flicker of hope. The breakthrough energized the volunteers. Teams were redirected to focus on the area surrounding the creek, where Max's keen sense had led Jack. The search intensified, with townsfolk rallying together, their earlier doubts replaced by a shared determination to find answers. Throughout the day, Jack's presence became a stabilizing force. His experience and methodical approach inspired a new level of coordination among the volunteers, transforming the fragmented efforts into a cohesive operation. He offered guidance on terrain navigation and safety, drawing on his military background to anticipate hazards and adapt to shifting conditions. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the forest floor, Max led Jack to another promising lead. A faint footprint pressed into the muddy bank of the creek. The imprint was fresh, its direction indicating movement deeper into the woods. Jack marked the spot and relayed the information, urging the search parties to follow the trail with renewed focus. The townspeople, their earlier skepticism dissolved, now looked to Jack as a symbol of hope and resilience. Back in the town square, news of the day's progress spread quickly. Conversations shifted from doubt to admiration. The community's collective spirit rekindled by the tangible results of Jack and Max's efforts. The mayor publicly acknowledged their contribution, his voice carrying a newfound warmth and gratitude. Later, as Jack returned to his cabin, the weight of the day settled on his shoulders. He sat on the porch, Max resting at his feet, the dog's steady breathing a comforting presence. The quiet of the evening was punctuated by the distant crash of waves and the rustling of leaves stirred by a gentle breeze. Jack reflected on the transformation unfolding in Harborview, not just in the search for Emily, but in the tentative bonds forming between himself and the community. The journey from outsider to trusted partner was underway, forged through shared hardship and the unwavering dedication of a man and his dog. Though the path ahead remained uncertain, Jack felt a renewed sense of purpose. Harborview was no longer just a place to hide from the past. It was becoming a home worth fighting for. And with Max by his side, he was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, step by cautious step, guided by the quiet strength of trust and determination. The dense forest around Harborview was alive with the sounds of rustling leaves and distant bird calls. But for Jack Harper and Max, it was a landscape of hidden clues and silent signals. The trail they followed wound deeper into the wilderness, the canopy above filtering the sunlight into dappled patterns on the forest floor. Each step was deliberate, every movement calculated to preserve the faint scent trail Max had uncovered near the creek. Max moved with an intensity that bordered on reverence, his nose barely inches from the ground, tracing the faintest traces of Emily Carter's passage. Jack matched his dog's pace, his sharp eyes scanning the environment for any sign that might confirm the path or reveal danger. The terrain was unforgiving. Twisted roots snaking across narrow trails, patches of loose rock, and the ever-present threat of sudden drops hidden beneath foliage. As they pressed forward, Max suddenly halted, ears twitching, muscles coiled like a spring. Jack crouched beside him, his breath steady despite the adrenaline that quickened his pulse. The dog's nose twitched as he caught a new scent, one that was faint but unmistakably human. Max led Jack toward a narrow opening concealed by overgrown brush. A hidden cave nestled against the cliffside, its dark mouth an ominous void against the earth. Jack approached cautiously, flashlight in hand, illuminating the rough stone walls that glistened with moisture. The air was cool and damp, carrying the faintest hint of something metallic and earthy. He scanned the entrance for traps or hazards, the lessons of past missions sharpening his senses. Inside the cave, the beam of light revealed a labyrinth of jagged rock formations and uneven footing. The narrow passage twisted and turned, forcing Jack to navigate with care. Max remained close, alert to every sound and movement, his body tense with anticipation. Deeper within the cave, a faint sound reached Jack's ears. A soft, muffled cry that stirred a surge of hope and urgency. He called out gently, "Emily, it's Jack. We're here to help." The response was fragile but clear, a whisper carried on the stale air. Jack moved swiftly toward the source, finding Emily huddled against a rocky wall, her face pale and streaked with dirt, eyes wide with relief and exhaustion. She was conscious but visibly injured, her ankle twisted and swollen, several scrapes marking her arms and legs. Jack knelt beside her, his voice calm and reassuring. "You're safe now. We're going to get you out." Max settled nearby, his presence a comforting anchor in the shadows. Jack assessed Emily's condition with practiced precision, noting the risks of movement and the urgency of extraction. The cave's narrow confines complicated matters, but Jack's experience in tight, hazardous environments guided his every decision. Outside, the wind howled softly, carrying the distant murmur of the search teams and the restless sea beyond the cliffs. Jack radioed the coordinates to the rescue command, his voice steady despite the tension. A team of volunteers arrived, their faces etched with determination and relief. Jack directed the extraction, coordinating carefully to avoid further injury. Emily was gently secured and lifted from the cave, her fragile form supported by strong hands and the steadfast loyalty of Max. As they emerged into the fading light, the town's anxious crowd gathered near the cliff's edge, their faces a mixture of hope and fear. When Emily was carried into the open, a collective sigh of relief rippled through the assembly, breaking the heavy silence that had settled over Harborview. The mayor stepped forward, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Max. You've brought hope back to this town." Jack nodded, the weight of the moment settling over him like a quiet tide. Emily's survival was a testament to resilience, courage, and the unyielding bond between man and dog. As Emily was tended to by medical personnel, Jack stood beside Max, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The forest whispered around them, a reminder of the wild and unpredictable world that lay beyond the town's borders. The rescue marked a turning point, not just in the search for Emily, but in the fragile relationship between Jack and Harborview. Trust, once elusive, began to take root, nourished by shared hardship and the undeniable power of hope. Jack's gaze lingered on the darkening woods, knowing that challenges still lay ahead. But in that moment, surrounded by the quiet strength of the land and the unwavering loyalty of Max, he felt a renewed sense of purpose, a commitment to protect, to serve, and to stand as a guardian in a town that was slowly becoming home. The Hulk cave's narrow entrance gave way to the brisk air outside, where the fading light of dusk cast long shadows over Harborview's rugged cliffs. Jack Harper carefully helped Emily Carter to her feet, steadying her fragile frame as Max remained close, alert and watchful. The rescue had been harrowing, but the relief that washed over the group was palpable, a silent testament to the bond forged in adversity. Emily's ankle throbbed with pain, her face pale but determined. Jack's steady hands helped her navigate the uneven ground, each step measured and cautious to avoid further injury. Max trotted beside them, his keen senses alert to every sound and movement, a guardian in the gathering twilight. The path back to town was treacherous, winding through dense brush and rocky outcrops. Jack's military training guided him as he assessed each step, ensuring their safety amid the unpredictable terrain. Volunteers followed closely behind, carrying medical supplies and offering words of encouragement. As they neared the outskirts of Harborview, the sounds of the town reached them. The murmurs of worried townsfolk, the distant bark of dogs, and the faint clamor of emergency responders preparing for Emily's arrival. The community's collective breath seemed to hold in anticipation, waiting for the moment hope would be restored. Max's ears pricked at every noise, his body tense yet composed. He led the group with unerring focus, his instincts guiding them through the fading light. Jack's eyes scanned the surroundings, alert to any potential hazards, his mind sharp despite the exhaustion creeping into his limbs. When they finally emerged onto the main street, a wave of relief swept through the gathered crowd. Faces that had once regarded Jack with suspicion now shone with gratitude and admiration. The mayor stepped forward, his voice thick with emotion as he addressed the assembly. "Emily is safe because of Jack and Max," he declared, his words carrying the weight of a father's gratitude and a town's collective hope. "Their courage and skill have brought her back to us." Emily's gaze met Jack's, a silent thank you passing between them, a connection forged in the crucible of danger and survival. The townspeople moved closer, their skepticism giving way to genuine appreciation. Emergency personnel quickly attended to Emily, assessing her injuries and preparing her for transport to the local clinic. Jack stood back, allowing others to take over, his focus shifting to the broader implications of the rescue. The successful recovery marked a turning point not only in the search, but in the fragile dynamic between Jack and Harborview. The town's walls of mistrust began to crumble, replaced by a tentative respect born from shared ordeal. As the crowd dispersed, Jack lingered near the harbor, the sky ablaze with the colors of sunset. Max settled at his feet, their bond unspoken yet profound. The rescue had tested their limits, but it had also reaffirmed their purpose. Jack's thoughts turned to the days ahead, the healing Emily would need, the questions still unanswered, and the challenges that awaited in rebuilding trust within the community. Yet beneath the weight of responsibility lay a quiet determination. Harborview was no longer just a place of exile. It was becoming a home worth defending. And with Max by his side, Jack was ready to face whatever came next, guided by the strength of their partnership and the resilience of a town, learning to embrace new heroes. Emily Carter lay in the small town clinic, the soft hum of machines and the muted footsteps of nurses filling the sterile room. Her face, once pale and strained, now held the faintest glow of recovery. The twisted ankle was wrapped securely, and the scrapes along her arms and legs were healing under gentle care. Outside her window, Harborview stirred with the slow rhythm of a community gradually easing from its collective fear. Jack Harper stood quietly in the hallway, his hands folded before him, the weight of the recent days pressing heavily on his broad shoulders. The town's gratitude had been expressed in countless ways, nods of respect, tentative smiles, and the occasional word of thanks from strangers who had once regarded him with suspicion. Yet for Jack, the true measure of healing was not in the gestures, but in the subtle shifts in the town's heartbeat. The mayor approached, his gait steady but his eyes weary. "Jack," he began, voice rough with emotion, "I want to thank you again. Harborview owes you more than words can say." Jack met the mayor's gaze evenly. "I was just doing what needed to be done," he replied modestly. "Emily's safe, that's what matters." The mayor nodded, a flicker of something unspoken passing between them. It was a fragile bridge being built, one step at a time. As news of Emily's recovery spread, the town's attitude toward Jack and Max transformed. The mocking whispers faded, replaced by conversations that acknowledged their vital role in the rescue. Linda, the local teacher who had once doubted Jack's involvement, now spoke openly about his expertise and dedication. At the community center, a gathering was held, a modest event to honor the volunteers and the unexpected heroes who had risen in the crisis. Jack was invited to speak, an invitation he accepted with quiet humility. Standing before the assembled townsfolk, he shared insights on preparedness, the importance of teamwork, and the value of looking beyond first impressions. Max sat patiently by his side, a symbol of loyalty and skill that transcended words. The dog's calm demeanor and steady presence inspired admiration, reinforcing the bond between man and community. The event marked a turning point, a collective acknowledgement of shared strength and resilience. Former skeptics approached Jack afterward, their expressions softened by respect and gratitude. For the first time, Jack felt the warmth of belonging, a stark contrast to the isolation he had endured. In the days that followed, Jack took on a new role within Harborview. He offered to lead search and rescue training sessions, sharing his knowledge with volunteers eager to be better prepared for future emergencies. The sessions were held along the coastline and in the surrounding forests, areas where danger lurked beneath the beauty of the landscape. Max became a central figure in the training, demonstrating tracking techniques and obedience drills that captivated the participants. Children and adults alike were drawn to the dog's intelligence and discipline, their skepticism replaced by admiration. The mayor publicly recognized Jack's contributions during a town meeting, praising his courage and commitment. The acknowledgement resonated throughout Harborview, fostering a renewed sense of unity and trust. Jack, in turn, reflected on the journey that had brought him here. From a man dismissed and mocked to a valued member of the community. The experience challenged his own perceptions, reminding him that service extended beyond the battlefield and into the heart of everyday life. As autumn deepened, the town embraced the changing seasons with a newfound spirit. Leaves turned fiery hues, blanketing the streets in gold and crimson. The air grew crisp, carrying the scent of wood smoke and pine. Harborview, once a place of quiet suspicion, now hummed with the quiet energy of healing and hope. Jack and Max continued their patrols along the coast, their presence a reassuring constant amid the town's evolving landscape. The bond they shared with Harborview deepened, rooted in trust forged through adversity and the shared commitment to protect and uplift one another. In the evening light, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Jack stood on the porch of his cabin, Max resting at his feet. The sounds of the town carried on the breeze. Laughter, conversation, the distant call of a foghorn. It was a symphony of life renewed. Though challenges remained, the path forward was clearer. Jack Harper had found not only a mission, but a home. The story of rescue and redemption was still unfolding, but in the quiet moments between waves and wind, there was a profound sense of belonging and purpose. A testament to the enduring strength of community and the unexpected heroes who rise among us. The crisp autumn air carried a renewed sense of purpose through the streets of Harborview. The town, once hesitant and wary of Jack Harper, now embraced him as a vital part of its fabric. The transformation was subtle yet profound, a shift from suspicion to acceptance, from distance to connection. Jack's presence had become a beacon of resilience and expertise, a symbol of the strength that could emerge when trust was forged in the fires of adversity. At the community center, a group of volunteers gathered for the latest search and rescue training session led by Jack. The room buzzed with anticipation as locals of all ages prepared to learn skills that might one day save a life. Jack moved among them with practiced ease, his voice steady and encouraging, breaking down complex techniques into accessible lessons. Max, ever the consummate partner, demonstrated tracking exercises with precision and grace. Children watched in awe as the dog followed faint scents and responded instantaneously to Jack's subtle commands. The dog's work inspired a newfound appreciation among the townsfolk for the critical role that working dogs played, not just as companions, but as lifesavers. Linda, the local teacher who had once doubted Jack's value, now stood among the volunteers, her expression one of respect and gratitude. "I never imagined I'd be here learning to track and navigate rugged terrain," she admitted during a break. "But Jack's teaching makes it feel possible. It's empowering." Jack nodded, understanding the deeper significance of these sessions. They were more than practical training. They were bridges building confidence and solidarity in a community that had once been fractured by fear and mistrust. Outside, Max's calm demeanor and tireless enthusiasm made him a beloved figure. Children who had once eyed Jack warily now ran to greet Max, their laughter mingling with the rustling of fallen leaves. The dog's gentle nature and keen intelligence softened the hearts of many, turning skepticism into admiration. Among the volunteers were former critics who approached Jack with quiet humility. Carl, the fisherman who had once dismissed Jack's efforts, now sought his guidance. "I was wrong about you," Carl confessed one afternoon as they reviewed search patterns along the coast. "You've taught me a lot about what it means to serve." Jack accepted the apology with a nod, recognizing the courage it took to confront one's own prejudices. The community's journey toward healing was ongoing, marked by moments of humility and growth. At the town meeting, the mayor publicly acknowledged Jack's contributions, praising his unwavering commitment and the positive impact he had on Harborview. The applause that followed was genuine and heartfelt, a testament to the deepening bonds between Jack and the town. Jack, however, remained grounded. He spoke modestly about teamwork and the importance of preparedness, emphasizing that the strength of Harborview lay in its people as much as in any individual. As autumn deepened, the town's landscape transformed into a tapestry of gold, amber, and crimson. The streets were lined with piles of leaves, laughter echoed from schoolyards, and the scent of wood smoke drifted from chimneys. Harborview was alive with the energy of renewal, its spirit rekindled by shared experience and collective resolve. Jack and Max continued their patrols along the cliffs and forests, their presence a reassuring constant amid the changing seasons. Together, they had become symbols of hope and protection, embodying the resilience that defined the town. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Jack found himself reflecting on the journey that had brought him here. The path from outsider to embraced member of the community had not been easy, marked by obstacles and moments of doubt. Yet, through patience and perseverance, a new chapter had begun. Max settled at Jack's feet, their bond a silent testament to loyalty and trust. The dog's steady breathing and warm presence grounded Jack in the present, reminding him of the strength found in partnership. Harborview's story was still unfolding, a narrative of courage, redemption, and the unexpected heroes who rise when a community comes together. Jack Harper had found more than a mission. He had found a home where his skills and spirit were valued. As twilight deepened, the town's lights flickered on, illuminating the streets with a soft glow. The air hummed with the promise of tomorrow, a future shaped by resilience and unity. In the quiet moments between waves and wind, Jack and Max stood ready, guardians of Harborview, their watchful eyes scanning the horizon, prepared to face whatever challenges lay ahead with unwavering resolve. The first light of dawn spilled softly over Harborview, casting a gentle glow across the town's winding streets and rugged coastline. The sea breathed a steady rhythm against the shore, its waves whispering promises of renewal and hope. Jack Harper stood on the porch of his cabin, Max resting loyally at his side, both silhouetted against the awakening sky. The past months had transformed more than just the town. They had reshaped Jack's own sense of purpose and belonging. Harborview was no longer the place where he had arrived as a stranger, met with suspicion and cold shoulders. It had become a community united by shared trials, a tapestry woven from resilience, courage, and newfound trust. Jack's journey from outsider to integral member of this town was a testament to the power of perseverance and the human spirit's capacity to heal. As the morning light warmed the wooden boards beneath his feet, Jack reflected on the path that had led him here. The disappearance of Emily Carter had been a catalyst, not only for the search that had rallied the town, but for the bonds forged in the crucible of crisis. Through every challenge, Jack and Max had stood steadfast, their partnership a beacon of strength and hope. The community's embrace had deepened over time. Jack had taken on the role of mentor and protector, sharing his expertise through search and rescue training sessions that empowered volunteers and strengthened Harborview's readiness. Max, ever vigilant and disciplined, had become a beloved symbol of loyalty and service, inspiring respect and affection across generations. Neighbors who once regarded Jack with doubt now greeted him warmly, their interactions marked by genuine connection. The mayor's public acknowledgments had paved the way for a broader recognition of Jack's contributions, fostering a spirit of unity that transcended past divisions. Today, Jack prepared to lead a new training exercise, a collaborative effort involving residents eager to build on their collective resilience. The morning air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and salt as volunteers gathered at the edge of the forest. Faces familiar and new looked to Jack with anticipation and trust. Max moved among the group with calm assurance, demonstrating tracking techniques and obedience drills that captivated the participants. Children's eyes sparkled with admiration as they watched the dog's precision and focus, while adults absorbed lessons that would equip them for future challenges. Jack's voice carried steadily through the clearing, guiding the volunteers with patience and clarity. "Preparedness saves lives," he reminded them. "But it's our commitment to each other that truly makes the difference." The exercise unfolded against the backdrop of Harborview's natural beauty, the towering trees, the rugged cliffs, and the endless horizon where sky met sea. It was a landscape that had tested the town's limits, but also revealed its strength. As the day progressed, Jack felt a profound sense of fulfillment. This was more than training. It was the weaving of a community fabric strengthened by shared purpose and mutual respect. Harborview was growing stronger, its people united in the face of uncertainty. Later, as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in hues of amber and violet, Jack and Max returned to the cabin. The dog settled at his feet, their bond a quiet source of comfort and resolve. Jack gazed out toward the sea, the waves reflecting the fading light like scattered jewels. In this moment, the journey felt whole, a story of redemption, courage, and the enduring power of connection. Jack knew that challenges would come again, as they always did, but the foundation laid here was steadfast. Harborview was no longer just a place on a map. It was home. And with Max by his side, Jack was ready to face whatever the future held, standing watch over a town that had become a testament to hope, resilience, and the unexpected heroes who rise among us.